I thought it was okay, a little inconsistent. I'd like to see us stay connected more within the blocks. I thought we got stretched a little bit, which is kind of what Alexandria is looking to play for. They're looking to play for the counter, and I don't think we did as well of a job as I thought we could have. But at the end of the day, we did enough to get the win. So that's ultimately what matters. We'll prepare for it just as we do with every game. We'll make sure that we're mentally and physically ready to go. As I always tell the girls, it always starts with the mental aspect of things, and everything else will follow in place as long as that's good to go. But we have 2 tough games ahead of us, and we're looking forward to it. This is why you play the game. You play for the competition. You wanna be challenged. You want people to push you, and these 2 teams are going to do just that. In St. Thomas and Houston Victoria, they both have some pretty good records coming in, just as we do, and looking forward to see how the weekend shakes out. Historically, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to be willing to work. Both teams. St. Thomas is a young program, so. Don't know exactly what to expect about them with this just being their first year, but either way, we're going to come out and we're going to match the level of intensity, and we're going to implement our ideas tactically and go from there. Playing on a turf surface at their place will be interesting. Our girls have done well with it over the past years, but it's always a change, and so we have to be able to adapt to those changes. Houston Victoria, relatively similar. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to fight, and as I've told the girls all the time, teams are going to want to come and give you their best shot. Being the champions, being the reigning champions, teams are going to give you their best shot. So we have to continue to prove ourselves day in and day out, in training and in the games. It starts with the mental process. You have to have mentally strong players that are willing to do the things day in and day out. If you want to have a successful program, there has to be consistency, and it starts with me, and it filters into the players, and the older players are doing a good job of filtering that mentality into the younger players, and the younger players are good about picking it up and running with it. So as long as we can continue with the right mentality, the program's going to continue to succeed.
Number one, we just got to have a better work ethic in the game. I mean, we did not want to actually work for that game, and then I say that because it's very unfortunate. I thought we came out in the first half and played with a little bit more will to work for the game on both sides of the ball, and in the second half, we lost that, and that's obviously very disappointing, but it is something that's innate in the players. I mean, they are born with that, the willingness to go out and outwork another player. And hopefully it's an isolated thing. Obviously, we're already going to make some changes because of it to improve our productivity on both sides of the ball, and especially, obviously, defensively. We weren't tracking runs very well in the middle of the field, so we're changing some things up in the middle to make us defensively a little more solid in that area. And hopefully that will help us out and give us dividends by helping us get the ball and keep it forward a little bit more. So we'll find out on Thursday. I mean, now it's a challenge. If you're going to play the top 2 teams that are in the conference, according to their records, but I don't think anyone's beaten some of the teams that we've beaten. And we have to see ourselves as our attitude is what is holding ourselves back. And if the players can make those changes with their attitude, be more confident going forward, be more aggressive in tracking the runs, be more aggressive going forward, better in their distribution, just stay switched on for longer periods of time, which a lot of it has to do with your focus and your concentration, then we're good enough to be successful. If we don't stay switched on, we're not going to be, but it also will say something about those players. So for me as a coach, it's about evaluating right now. Which players are the players that are not going to stay switched on to the players that we can't have any longer in the program. They're not helping us move forward, and they got to be able to handle adversity. Every team's had it. St. Thomas started out 0-5. That's a lot of adversity. We had it one year and we started out 0-4 and we went and won the conference. So every team has some adversity or another that they have to overcome. Ours is happening obviously at a later point in time. And we had some a few weeks back, and I thought we kind of bounced back from that, and now we kind of find ourselves in that same area. So it is definitely a mental thing, but I have full faith that our players can overcome it.
I was really happy with how we came out and played really well with high energy at the beginning. We've been starting out a little bit slower in recent matches, and so we made it a point of emphasis to try and jump out to a quick lead. You know, get 1 point on serve, and then if we lose it, side out immediately, then get another point on serve. And each set, we jumped out to a good lead. I think we had about a 5 or 6 point lead in every single set. And so what that does is it allows you to work on some things that you might not necessarily get to work on. We can try some different lineups. We can get some people in the rotation that don't get a lot of playing time. And so we got a lot better from that game by getting to the lead. I mean, Langston's going to be a good team. They've got a good coach. It's his first year there. He's going to make that team a lot better. And so for us to be able to get out there to a good lead, it allowed us to do what we want to do. And overall, it was a positive weekend for us. I think the girls understand that if we don't take things seriously, anything can happen. Like, look at our conference this past weekend. You know, St. Thomas, the team that only lost one match to us in the first round, they got upset on their home court. And I think it shows us that, hey, we cannot stop trying to improve. And it was a good reminder that we just need to continue to work hard in practice. And we did that this morning in practice, and we're looking forward to doing it tomorrow against Shriner. Shriner did pretty well this past weekend. They got 3 wins, 3 conference wins, so they're going to be on a nice little high, a nice little roll. And so I'm expecting a much tougher match than what we had the first time. They're a well-coached team. Their coach has a lot of experience, and so he's going to have them ready for us. And we need to go in not expecting a win. We need to go in expecting a tough match on the road that we have to earn. And it's going to be a good test for us to show that we're going to be a good road team, but we just need to prove it. That game on Friday is going to be a tough game. Houston Tillotson has a really solid coach. Dan knows exactly what he's doing, and for the last month since we've played them, they've been without their best all-around player, and she came back this past weekend and just tore it up against Langston. And so we know she's going to be playing us. We know that we're going to get their best shot. And, every conference match is important. It's important for us to win that because right now, if you did the playoffs today, right now, there's a chance we play Houston Tillotson in the playoffs. And so we've got to make sure we're mentally ready for that, understanding what's coming, and just focus on what we do. I mean, it's cliche to say that, but for us, it really is what we need to do. When we let down, we give away free points. And when we give away free points, we're not as good. And so we just need to make sure we're focused, and especially with the conference team coming in that's already played us, has tape on us. We know we gotta play tough.
Well, and to have all of the runners under 21, we've never done that before to that level in terms to the 8th runner. We've never come close to being all under 21 before. But yeah, then you're right. The amount of people we had under 20 was ridiculous too, and ridiculous in a good way, obviously. The women are just very talented. They've got good leadership amongst the team, and they're focused right now. And I think that they have their goals in front of them, and they're not gonna let anything stop them from achieving them ultimately. And we put a lot on this particular race since August. I mean, we talk about money meets, and the 3 money meets on our schedule are the Mid-States Classic, Conference, and Nationals. At least in terms of the women, from that perspective. So we put a lot on those meets. We talk about, if we're going to mess up at all, it needs to be before these meets. Because starting with the Mid-States, there's no more room for error. It's what it is at that point, and you're not made or broken at Mid-States, but like I tell them, it's a huge indicator on how we're going to be going in the conference, in particularly nationals. So I think they're just really focused right now. Good leadership, and then obviously they're talented, which that's the number one thing. And that's
Jasmine.
the second or third race where they've, double teamed it, so to speak, like that. It's interesting too because they both approached the race very differently. I think at the mile, Jasmine was maybe 15 seconds behind Elena and spent the rest of the race just slowly eating up ground on her. But right now they're a dangerous tandem. And I'm looking forward to seeing them go at it again at conference and then hopefully nationals. But they're working really well together right now because you can tell that neither one of them wants the other to beat them. So, so far Jasmine's managed to rob Elena every time, but if Elena keeps doing it the way she's doing it, you got to figure eventually she's gonna get her win. So, and I know Jasmine don't want that to happen, not because she doesn't like Elena, but because they're very competitive. So that's working out great right now. Yeah, I mean, what you're trying to do if you're in my seat is you're trying to allow them to have confidence because of the way we performed, but you definitely want to be careful of being arrogant or going into it thinking that we've already won conference. So that's one thing we've talked about is we've done great things, but half the great things we've done were never our goal to begin with. They were a process to our goal, but the ultimate goal, for this women's team, there was two of them. One was the win the conference, and the second one was to finish in the top 25 in the NEIA at the national meet. So we haven't accomplished the two main goals of the season. Still have not been accomplished yet. So we talked to the women about, hey, you've done all these great things, but if we don't accomplish the first and second goal we set out to accomplish, the rest of the season is not going to mean a whole lot. Okay, so now to get to your question, or to answer your question directly, I mean, I'm hoping you can expect us to go out there and take care of business like we've been doing. Treat Wiley, treat Xavier, treat all the teams there like we've been treating everybody, as if they can come up and beat us, because they can. They absolutely can. We are not a surefire bet to win the conference by any means. We've got to perform the way we've been performing. And so, again, hopefully that's what you see. Hopefully you see a focused team that's hungry and doesn't take anybody for granted. Want to give props to both Jocelyn and Ione. First time to ever go under 20 for a 5K on a cross-country course. So I'm very proud of them. That's something that they've both been striving to do. And now that 20-minute monkey's off their back, and now hopefully we can focus on going under 1930. So I'm proud of them. With the men's team, first of all, I'd like to backtrack and say we haven't had a terrible meet yet. And for a group that's so young, you almost kind of anticipate there being an implosion at some point in the season. And, we talk about it's never good. It's never a good thing to have a bad meet, but in all likelihood, you're going to have one. That's just the reality of what we do. Now, we would have liked to have timed the bad meet differently, because just like I was talking about with the women, you don't want to show up the mid-states and lay an 8. That's not the meet to do it at. If you're going to do that, you need to do it earlier. Well, so unfortunately, we picked the wrong meet to be bad at. But the good news is it really is an outlier in the big picture to the rest of the season. So hopefully we learn from that and we can move on. Some of the things specifically that went wrong, I just think, we're young, and, the leadership structure that the men's team has just did not hold the team together on Saturday. Whether it was because we had a 40-minute delay in the race because of timing issues, or a little bit of a cold weather that we haven't experienced before. Whatever it was, they just did not start that race focused. And then me and Coach Smith saw just before the women's race all the men bickering about cold and I can't believe this race got delayed and all this. Well, those are the things that they need to learn to not be distracted by, because everybody was facing those conditions. Well, they allowed those conditions to beat them when other teams didn't. Well, that's the difference sometimes between good and bad teams. And on that day, we were a bad team. And they understand they ran terribly. It wasn't something that was a shock to them, and automatically you learn something from that experience, no matter what it is. You learn something from it, you know, and so they know what's at stake for conference, you know. So there's not a whole lot we need to do other than to keep moving forward and to keep doing things the way we have been doing them up until, you know, mid-states. So, I mean, we're going to be fine. You know, they're talented, and, you know, they are focused on their goal. They just had a little hiccup in the road there that, you know, we need to just move on from, and I think they will. I don't think it's going to be a big issue.